Do you want to make a delicious sugar cookie that's a little bit crispy, very flaky, and practically melts in your mouth? If so, then this is the video for you. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you my husband's grandmother's sugar cookie recipe. This recipe has been in his family for a very long time, and it is his absolute favorite sugar cookie at Christmas time, or at any time actually. I'm also going to share with you a little secret I learned on how to tell if you have your cookie dough at just the right thickness without using a tape measure or ruler or any expensive gadgets. I'll also share with you an icing recipe that turns out great every time, and how to decorate 2 different cookies using 1 cookie cutter. So let's head into the kitchen and get this started. Okay, we're going to start by creaming together 2 sticks of softened butter. Now this butter is not melted, it was just left out on the counter so that it could get soft. So you just want it soft, you don't want it all the way melted. So I'll add 1 cup of granulated sugar and 1 cup of powdered sugar. Now you want this to be creamed together until it's smooth and silky. You don't want to have any of the granules still in there, at least not very much. So I'm just going to scrape this off the sides, and then I'll let it go a little bit longer. And for this, the white granulated sugar works the best because you do want to get that incorporated, and you don't want to have you don't want it to be gritty. You want it to be nice and smooth. Okay, I think that's perfect. Now to this, we're going to add a cup of oil. I'm using grapeseed oil. You could also use avocado oil or canola oil. I wouldn't recommend olive oil. You just want to use a light oil for this. So we'll go ahead and get that incorporated. And next I'm going to add a teaspoon of baking soda, a teaspoon of cream of tartar, a teaspoon of vanilla extract, 2 eggs. There's 1, 2, 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt. It's actually going to be 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. You could also do a teaspoon of vanilla extract and a teaspoon of almond extract if you want to do that as well. Now I'm going to mix this up, and as it's mixing, I'm going to add in 5 cups of flour. And this is just regular all-purpose flour. Now you want to mix that just until it's incorporated. Okay, now I've laid out 2 sheets of saran wrap. I'm going to take half of my dough out, just form it into a ball, and put it on one sheet. Now I'll take the other half of my dough and put it on the other sheet. And now we're just going to wrap these up in the saran wrap. And these are going to go into the refrigerator and rest for 1 to 2 hours. You could even make this in advance and leave the dough in the refrigerator up to a few days. But at minimum, you want to let it sit in the refrigerator for 1 to 2 hours. Now here I have some dough that was already in the refrigerator. I'm going to sprinkle some flour out onto my surface. I just want enough flour so that it doesn't stick to my board. So just put a little bit of flour on top of your dough and then on your rolling pin, and then just start pressing it out. I like to press it out before I start rolling it. Once you get it somewhat flattened, then go ahead and just start rolling it out. Just take your time, roll one way then the other. What you're looking for is to get it to be about 1/4 inch thick. And to measure that, you can use a ruler or a tape measure. You can also invest in those, the fancy rings that go around your rolling pin. If it starts to stick, just put on some more flour. You can also get one of those fancy rolling pins that have the built-in measures on them. I'm just going to look to try to get it fairly even. But an inexpensive, easy way to tell is if you have a bottle cap laying around, a metal bottle cap, or a food lid. This lid is off of a can of cheese sauce. I think a sour cream lid would work the same. They're all about the same thickness, and these are both about 1/4 inch thick. Just put it alongside your dough. Now I know I'm at 1/4 inch, or approximately. It doesn't have to be exact. You just don't want it to be too thin. So now we're going to cut out our cookie shapes, get them on the pan, and get them in the oven. So I have some trees, some candy canes, some stars, got some gingerbread people. Now to get it off my sheet, I just take a spatula and put it underneath and just kind of scoop them out. This dough is pretty forgiving. You can just do little repairs as you go if it pulls apart. So once you're done filling up your cookie sheet, any other ones that you had already cut out, just set them aside. You just take all of your dough, put it back into a ball, and then roll it back out so that you can cut out more shapes. The ones that we've cut out and put on our cookie sheet, these are going to go in the oven at 350 degrees for 10 to 15 minutes. The original recipe said to cook them for 10 to 12 minutes, but in my kitchen with my oven, it takes closer to 15 minutes. So I would say, minimum 10 minutes. It shouldn't take more than 15 minutes. And you'll know when they're done is when they start to get a little bit brown right around the edges. You don't want them to be completely brown. Just when the edges start to get a little bit brown, you'll know that's when it's time to pull them out of the oven. You'll then let them sit on the cookie sheet for 1 to 2 minutes, and then transfer them from your cookie sheet onto a cooling rack because you want them to cool completely before you put on any frosting or icing. If you're going to use sugar sprinkles, then you'd want to put those on while they're still hot. But today we're going to be using icing, so I'm going to want these to cool completely before I start my decorating. So I'm going to get these in the oven, and I'm going to start cutting out more cookies, and I will bring you back when everything's done and we're ready to decorate. If you like making sugar cookies or just eating sugar cookies and you're enjoying today's video, please let me know by giving this video a thumbs up. Okay, now that our cookies are baked and cooled, it's time to decorate. We're going to start with making some icing. In this bowl, I have 2 cups of powdered sugar, and to that, I'm going to add 4 teaspoons of milk. And yes, I know I could use a tablespoon plus a teaspoon, but I don't want to dirty up another dish. And now to this, we're going to add 4 teaspoons of light corn syrup. And the corn syrup is optional, but it's going to give it a nice shine to the icing. And next we're going to add almond extract. You could add vanilla extract, but the almond is a clear extract, and since I want my icing to be nice and white, I'm going to add the almond. And you'd add half a teaspoon to a teaspoon, whatever you want. Now I'm just going to mix this with a hand mixer until I have a nice, smooth icing. Okay, I'm beginning to think that my instructions should have said 4 tablespoons of milk instead of 4 teaspoons of milk. So we're going to add some more. Okay, this would be the equivalent to 4 tablespoons of milk. Let's see if that works better. Now that's much better. Okay, so 4 tablespoons of milk. I will make sure that when I put the recipe down below that I put in the correct measurements, and I'll make sure I update my recipe card because apparently I wrote it down wrong. So now that we have our icing, I'm going to separate it out into a few different bowls because I want some different colors to use. So I'll leave one white. I do want a little bit of brown, so I'm going to put the brown in this one. Maybe a little bit of blue and some green. We don't need a whole lot. A little bit does go a long ways. And I also want a little bit of red. So for the red, I'll just put in a couple of drops of red gel food coloring. Oh, 1 more drop. 3 drops of red. I think that's a nice color. So next I'm going to make some brown. 2 drops of purple and a drop of yellow. We'll see how that goes. We'll have to just adjust as I go. Let's see what we end up with here. I'm going to add some more purple to this. I'll just do 1 drop at a time until I get the color consistency that I'm looking for. I know I could mix with red and blue also to make brown, or red and green. Apologies, if you mix red, blue, and yellow, you can get a brown shade. Red and green, you can get a brown. But supposedly purple and yellow also give a nice brown. And that's not too bad. We'll go with that. It's still going to taste great. Okay, now the next color I want is blue. Ooh, that's pretty. That is a pretty blue right there. And I think the last one we'll do is some green. Now if you don't want to make icing and maybe you have a can of frosting around, or you just want to make frosting, that will work as well. If you don't have any food coloring, you could just use white and then use different colors of sprinkles to get the color contrast that you want on your cookie. Okay, I just added 2 drops of red and 1 drop of green to this other brown that I made, and I think that that's a much nicer color brown. This is more of what I was going for. So depending on what you're going for, keep that in mind, that the red and the green combined might make the nicer brown. But then having that tint of purple in it is also very nice. So maybe mixing all of them together, purple, yellow, red, and green together, do make a nice brown. Okay. That's one thing I love about baking, is it's just as much of a science experiment as it is a culinary experience. And it tastes great in the end. Okay, so now you have a couple of different choices. You could put your icing in a piping bag and pipe it onto your cookies. You could dip your cookies, so just take it and dip it in there, or you can spoon it on. I think I'm going to start with spooning it on and seeing how that goes. So first one I'm doing is my little Christmas tree. So I'm just going to spoon a little bit on and just kind of move it around to the edges. Now if you were to pipe it on, you could make like a outline of what you're frosting, and then fill it and let that dry a little, and then fill it in or flood it with the rest of the icing. That's how you get those nice sharp straight lines on the edges. I'm not as worried about straight lines. It's definitely a messier way of doing it. So this next one, I'll do another Christmas tree, but I'll pipe it on and show you how that works. So I'm just going to spoon a little bit into the piping bag. So I don't think it's going to take much. A couple of teaspoons full. And push that down to the end. See what I'm doing there? Now I'm going to take my scissors and just snip a little tiny bit off the end. I'm just going to go around the outside of my cookie. I want to put some brown at the bottom for the base. For this one, again, I'm just going to spoon it on. Try to spoon on a little bit less this time. They're like little pearl balls. Whoop. There went one. I'm just going to set these around. If you're going to put decorations on your cookies, you want to put them on while the cookies are still wet. If they dry up too much, then you can still put it on, just add a little dab of icing. I'm going to add a little bit of silver sanding sugar, just to give it a little bling. Look how pretty that is. Flood the inside, which is basically you just put your icing in the middle and just kind of move it around on the inside. And just try to be careful with it. I'm going to let that set up a little bit before I do the next thing on it. So this one has set up a bit. To get a little bit of icing on it, I'm just going to dab it. Other side of my Q-tip, and we'll put on some blue lights. A little Christmas tree. Well, here are our finished cookies. They're definitely not professionally done, but I think they look pretty good, and I wouldn't mind eating one if I was presented one at a party or any time. Now, as promised, I told you we were going to be able to take one cookie cutter shape and make it into 2 different cookies. And here it is. With a gingerbread man cookie cutter, you can make a gingerbread man, or you can flip it upside down and make a little reindeer. Well, if you liked today's video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you're not already subscribed to my channel, please consider subscribing. And until next time, I hope you have an amazing day, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye now.